Okay, here we go. Let's apply the product rule. Product rule means we're going to do multiplication. We are multiplying y to the fourth times y to the fifth. They are not alike. So I'm not asking you to add, I'm not asking you to subtract, I'm asking you to multiply. The rule says when we multiply the same base, we add exponents. The bases are the same. The base is y, the base is y, the base is y. So even though these are not like terms, because they're not identical, they do have the same base. And the rule is you just add the exponents. So the base will stay y, and we're going to add the exponents. Well, here's our exponent of 4. Here's our exponent of 5. Somebody's going to tell me there's no exponent. You're right. You don't see the exponent, but it's understood to be the number 1. So 4 and 1 is 5, and 5 plus 5 is 10. So when we multiply that algebra expression, we get y to the 10th. Something new and different. We just breeded. We took two different breeds, multiplied them together, and got a new breed. Okay? This is 5a to the 4th times negative 3a to the 7th. Again, we know we're doing multiplication. These are side by side with parentheses. Now, everybody look. It would make common sense. If I covered up the variables and that just said 5 times negative 3, you wouldn't have a problem. You would multiply the 5 times the negative 3, and you would get negative 15. So we're multiplying monomials, one term. You're right, we're going to multiply the numbers, the coefficients first. Then we're going to multiply the letters. A to the 4th times a to the 7th. Even though they're not alike, they're not like terms, they have the same base, the letter A. So we write the letter A, and we say if there's 4 A's here and there's 7 A's here, we put it together, we would add and we get A to the 11th. That will save you a lot of time than writing this out the long way. You also need to understand when you're multiplying here, you're using a property of arithmetic. You're using the commutative property. You're changing the order you're multiplying. Because what you're doing is you're multiplying the 5, the number, times the negative 3, the number. You're changing the order, which we're allowed to do in arithmetic, because we've already discussed this. If I write 2 times 3 and you write 3 times 2, it means the same thing. So even though I can't technically multiply the 5 to the a to the 4th, I'm finding what I can multiply together. So I'm changing the order in my head. I'm doing 5 times negative 3, and then I'm doing a to the 4th times a to the 7th. Okay, over here I have 3 terms. xy squared, y cubed z to the 6th, negative x fourth z. These are all monomials because they're all connected by multiplication. I'm asking you to multiply them. They do not have to be alike to multiply. All you have to find is the letters the same base. And then we'll add our exponents. So, if I have an x here, who would I multiply it by? I would multiply it to a negative x to the 4th. So everybody look. This is positive x. This is negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. And the rule is when you multiply letters, you add exponents. I don't see an exponent on x, so it's understood to be the number 1. If I have 1x here and 4x is here, that makes x to the 5th. Okay, now I'm going to multiply the y's. I have y squared and y cubed. So the bases are both y. 2 plus 3 is 5, so that would be y to the 5th. Then I multiply the z's. So I have z to the 6th and z. This term is understood to have an exponent of 1. Z to the 6th times z to the 1st would be z to the 7th. If you look, all 3 variables are still connected by multiplication. A big mistake you all make is you want to take that negative and put it somewhere in the middle here. You can't. This negative is a coefficient. It's negative 1. And if you look back here, that's what we multiplied first. We multiplied the coefficients. 5 times negative 3 made negative 15. The coefficient goes in front. If you look here, all 3 of these monomials have coefficients. There's understood to be a 1 here, a 1 here, and a negative 1. So if you still multiply the coefficients first, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And we've already discussed we don't need to put the coefficient 1, it's understood to be there. So this would be our expression multiplied. Our last one, last expression we're multiplying has to deal with fractions. We're going to be dealing with fractions a lot. So the rule is multiplying fractions is no problem. Top times top, bottom times bottom. 1 times 2. Oh, wait a minute. Before we do this, we have to deal with the negative sign. We talked about this. When they put a negative in front of the fraction bar, who does it belong to? That's right. It goes always to the numerator. So now we're going to do top times top. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Bottom times bottom. 2 times 3 is 6. Then we'll multiply the variables. Well, I have a C and I have a D. Those letters are not the same. So we cannot add their exponents. We only add exponents with variables that are the same. So we're just going to leave that a C, and we're going to leave that as a D squared. And they're in the middle of the fraction bar. Now, this answer is not acceptable. It's not simplified. You all have learned since elementary school, all fractions need to be reduced. Reduce means to do division. That's what this bar means. So what can you divide 2 and 6 by? You can divide by 2. So when you divide negative 2 by 2, you get negative 1. When you divide 6 by 2, you get 3. So one way to write this answer is to write negative 1/3 CD squared. And if you want, you can leave the negative in the middle of the bar, and you can leave the CD squared in the middle of the bar. That's one way to write the answer. I'm not a fan of that. I'm very particular. I like my placement of my terms to be where they need to be. So like I said to y'all before, if there's a negative sign in the middle of the bar, it always floats to the top. So that's negative 1/3. The same thing's true with variables. If the variables are in the middle of the fraction bar, they also float to the top. So I'll put that CD squared on the top. Now if I put that CD squared on the numerator at the top, then this coefficient of 1 is not necessary. So the final way to write this answer would be negative CD squared over 3. That should make sense. Dividing by 3 really means I have a third. Either answer here are acceptable. So you just have to pay attention to see what they want when they're writing their expression in your homework or on your notes. Okay, we'll continue with multiplication in the next video. See you then.